YouTube, what is going on? This is my first time going live from YouTube. So, if hopefully you guys can hear me. Again, my name is Keisha Barrios, and I am so happy to finally be able to get my YouTube channel up and going. And so, if you come in, if you are watching the replay, like and subscribe. Tonight, we are going to be talking about a topic that is so dear to me. It is so dear to me. So, if you are here, if you are watching the replay, you can put hashtag replay. I am going to be talking about what goes on in this house stays in this house. Again, my name is Keisha Barrios. I am a mother of 12. I have a blended family. I am married. I'm a wife. I am a PK. I'm a preacher's kid. I was raised by my father and have been in the local church assembly for as long as I can remember. So, yes, I feel like that I was brought up in church, that I was raised in church, that I started crawling and walking in church. So, this topic to me is not something that is just something that I just came on YouTube and just decided that I was going to talk about. I wanted to bring a conversation. And again, as I said, this is my first time on YouTube. So please like, subscribe, give me some hearts. Don't really know what happens on YouTube, but give me some hearts, give me some likes, and then engage in the conversation. If you would like to, if you are here live and you have some questions that you would like for me to answer, I will be more than welcome to answer those questions. But first and foremost, I am going to start off with a not so shameless plug, but this is my book that I wrote, and it is called Breaking the Silence: Untold Stories from the Hearts of Preachers' Kids. And this is actually the journal, but I have the journal, I have the book, and I have the workbook. So, in one of the chapters says what goes on in this house stays in this house. And I really wanted to write this book because I felt led that the church as a whole needed to hear from PKs. I'll pause there for a minute and say it again. I believe the church as a whole needed to hear from PKs. And so I wrote the book because I believe that there are some things that the church need to hear. So one of the chapters that is the reason why I am on here says what goes on in this house stays in this house. And in the description, I asked, is what goes on in this house stays in this house, is it a silencer? So I'm going to go back and deal with that a little bit. I can't speak about anybody else's home. But I'm sure that if you are from the south, north, east, or west, your auntie, them, your mom, someone you have heard say, what goes on in this house stays in this house. And I believe as I walked through and talked to some of the PKs, they were a lot of things that were going on in in households back then. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, so I'm just going to say back then, which was 20 plus years ago. And I believe that though there are still some things that are going on in today's household with children, that they are silenced by adults telling them what goes on in this house stays in this house. And I believe that sometimes there are traumatic events that happen to children, whether that is abuse, physical abuse, whether that is emotional abuse, whether that is sexual abuse, molestation. And I believe that by saying what goes on in this house stays in this house, it keeps the child muzzled and muted. And I believe as a culture, and I believe as a people, we need to make sure that we are not muzzling our children. And so I'll tell you a little bit about the chapter in my book. If you want to go over to Amazon, it is available on Amazon. You can go get it and read it. It is a wonderful book. It has 5-star reviews. So, if you are a PK, if you know a PK, if you are currently a young minister with children that you possibly are going to be rearing in the church, if you are even a church member, you need to go get Breaking the Silence, Untold Stories from the Hearts of PKs, because some things in the book really gives you a perspective on PKs, how PKs are treated, how PKs, some of the things that we have to endure. And I believe that it is important for you to be able to see another perspective than just the perspective that you got from the pew. Of course, as I said before, this is my first time going live on YouTube. So none of this is scripted. I'm coming straight from the heart. I'm speaking straight from the heart. And as a PK, I believe that there are a lot of us that are out there that are wounded, that are rejected, that some of us still feel like that we are living in this fishbowl. Some of us still feel like that we are living under a microscope. And so I would suggest that you go get the book. But let's talk about a little bit about what goes on in this house stays in this house. So one of the things that came up in the book was that during the time a PK was being raised in a home, they saw a lot of things going on inside the home that was things that they could not share. And so one of the things that I shared that was part of my testimony was that um, there were winters that we didn't have heat. Yeah, my father was a preacher. He would go, he would preach people happy every Sunday. He would go turn on the heat at the church. But we would come home and we would not have heat, and we would have to heat our house with the oven. Again, what goes on in this house stays in this house. Also, in my book, I talk about PK's testimonies, not only of physical abuse. Some endured and saw, sexual abuse. Some people were physically abused. And I just believe that it is important as parents that we make sure that we are paying attention to our children. You know, if your daughter or your son, because now we have to just be careful with everybody with our children. And I'm going to stop here and say this to every parent out there. Be careful who you are allowing your children to be with. Yes, I said it again. I don't care if it is a family member. I don't care if it's somebody from the church. Just because people go to church don't mean that they are saved and they have the best interest of your children at heart. You need to be careful who you are leaving your children with. If all of a sudden your child does not want to be around a certain individual, whether that individual is a family member, a church member, the postmaster, the mailman, it doesn't matter who it is. If your child all of a sudden does not want to have anything to do or seems to shift in their demeanor and their emotions when this person come around, you may want to take a pause. The second thing I want to share with you, if you notice that your child who is of age, who has not had any issues, who has been potty trained a long, long time ago, all of a sudden starts bedwetting, you may want to take a pause. I'm not saying that means that your child has been molested or violated. But what I am saying is, if all of a sudden your child starts wetting the bed and they are of age, you may want to get a therapist involved. The third thing I want to share is, if you have a child that comes to you and says that somebody is hurting them, it is your duty, it is your responsibility to investigate, to look into it. Don't just shrug them off. For God's sake, don't just say, oh, she's just fast. Don't just keep it under the cover, because that is what the problem is now in this generation. For generations after generations after generations, generations have covered up sexual abuse, physical abuse. Sons and daughters have went to their parents. Sons and daughters have went to their mothers, their aunties, and guess what? They didn't believe them when they said, Uncle Johnny has been touching me. They didn't believe them when they said, your boyfriend has been touching me in places that I shouldn't be touched. Again, if you have children that come to you and tell you that they are being violated, it is your duty, it is your responsibility to not tell them what goes on in this house stays in this house, and to not make them feel guilty, and to not say things like, oh, you just fast, you just wanted it. It is your duty and your responsibility to protect our children. Again, this is my first YouTube live. If you want to leave a comment, if you want to leave, let me know how you felt about this video. Again, what goes on in this house should not be a reason or a saying to keep our children muzzled. I'm out. I appreciate you listening. Goodbye. Don't forget, like and subscribe.